All right, so in this video, I'm going to explain how to add some logic to the controller so that we can start to write the guessing game app. Now, in the last video, you should have connected the label to the controller, the text field to the controller, and then the guess button to the controller as an action. 2 outlets, 1 action. That's what we need so far. So what we're going to do here is in the guess submitted function, we're going to go to the start of that function, press enter a couple times. We're going to say print the guess that was given. Okay, so this is just a little bit of debug code that we're going to add. We're going to say print text field guess.text. Okay, so that's the name of the text field that we created with an outlet, and we're printing out the text property of that field. Run your program in the simulator right now. And you're going to get a little warning saying that there's a number of things happening here. Don't worry about that warning right now. Excuse me. It'll launch your game in the simulator. You don't have to do anything, just wait. It'll come up, it'll come to the front when it runs. Okay, and once it loads, enter in a number. Just enter in any number. I'm going to enter in 15, and then I'm going to press the guess button. So you'll notice in the debug area at the bottom of your screen, and if you don't see this, click to Xcode, click this little interface element to show the debug area, and then make sure that you have the console showing, right? And you'll see that it said optional 15. So what that's telling us is that the text property on text field guess is an optional string. So as you know from earlier this year when we studied the difference between optional variables and regular variables, we need to unwrap optionals before we can use them. We need to make sure that the variable is not nil. That's what it means to unwrap an optional. So here's how we do that. So unwrap the text field's contents. And what we're doing here is making sure that the text field is not containing a nil value. So the way we do that is with a guard let statement. So I'm just going to drag my window over here to get a bit more space. So guard let input given equals text field guess.text else. Okay, so what this is saying is take the contents of the text field, attempt to create a string that's not optional. So if you option click on input given, it's going to tell you that it's creating a non-optional string. My computer's lagging a bit because I'm screen recording right now. And if that works, then after this structure, after this guard let statement, you'll have a variable available that you can use. If it doesn't work, what we're going to do is return. And what that does basically says, if we could not unwrap the optional, then quit this function. It's basically error checking. So this code unwraps the contents of the text field and makes sure that we have at least a variable that contains a value. It's a variable that is not nil. The next thing that we need to do is make sure that the value is an integer. So, for example, what happens if the user enters text, right? For example, 5. That's not going to be able to be something that we convert to an integer. So we need to take this optional string, input given, and convert it. Sorry, that's not an optional string, that's a regular string. We need to take that string and try to convert it into an integer. So we say something like this, guard let guess provided equals int input given else. Okay, and if we can't do that, if we can't convert to an integer, then quit and return. Okay. Finally, after all of this, we're going to print the actual number that was given. So after you've got that code typed in, try running your program, and you should get something like this. So let's take a look at our debug output. So we get a number of messages there that we don't need to pay much attention to. But if we type, say, 14 right now, and then type guess, what we see, whoops, I actually forgot to type the print command there. So print guess provided. Sorry, I need to run the program again. That'll take a moment. So I actually want to have printing the contents of the text field, the two guard-let statements, and then finally a print of the contents of that guess provided variable. So I'm just waiting for the program to run again. All right, so if we type 14 and press guess, it'll show us two things. It still says optional 14, which is from this print statement, and then here it's actually printing, and you notice it no longer says optional. So we've unwrapped the text field's contents, put it in a non-optional string, a string that's guaranteed to have a value. Then we took that string, tried to create an integer, and if that worked, puts the contents of that into an integer variable called guess provided, and here we printed that value out. Now look what happens if we don't put anything in at all. If we put nothing in at all, excuse me, if we put, say, 5 in and type guess, you see it says optional 5, that's from this print statement, but this guard-let statement worked, this guard-let statement did not. You can't convert the text 5 into a variable that contains an integer, so this return statement ran. That's why we didn't see this print statement come out. So that's enough for this video. We basically got some information coming from the user. In the next video, we're going to start to define our model and basically begin writing the code for the model, which is going to take care of storing the number that is randomly generated and some other things. So that'll be in our next video.